Imagine hearing the words, oh, sorry, let me get a tissue. I probably just have to hold it. Got it. I'll try again. Imagine hearing the words that your child has cancer. That was the reality I faced 6 years ago in our local emergency room, and it was the last thing I heard clearly for weeks. My son was 8 years old when his little brother poked him in the side with a hockey stick, rupturing a stage 3 tumor we didn't know he had. Jack is wearing the green hoodie. This was taken 6 months after we found out he was sick. He doesn't look sick, does he? Cancer is so sneaky. I'd become adept at being a researcher. And when faced with my son's illness, I started writing notes and collecting artifacts and taking photos, and that helped me with the madness that we were facing. And it gave me something to write my book with. I started writing the book about a year after, but it was too painful to write, so I put it away. Little did I know what was to come. It was an incredibly traumatic time when we learned of his illness. All my capacities were compromised. I couldn't hear. I couldn't comprehend. I could see lips moving, but made no sense. We were thrown into the hospital with literally the clothes on our backs. My husband went home each night to care for our younger son. And every day he'd bring us out more things that helped to make our stay more comfortable. I went a little bit crazy. I was a little bit fitful at first. It got better, but it was really tricky for us. I remember calling our family to tell them Jack had the good cancer, the one that we hoped for. It went by the name of Wilms, stage 3. It had completely destroyed one kidney, wrapped itself around the vena cava, or the main vein that ran down his body, and was reaching toward the other kidney when we found out. His course of treatment was only 7 months. He had 15 chemotherapy treatments, 13 radiation treatments, and 3 surgeries during this time. Some children have a much more difficult journey through cancer. I learned there's a big difference between cancers that are curable and cancers that are treatable. We were lucky. His cancer was curable. We met 2 little boys whose cancers were only treatable, and eventually their doctors ran out of options. Jack drew this picture. It shows the statistics for childhood cancer. All cancers are averaged here. If you lined up 10 children, 8.5 would survive their cancer, but 1.5 would not. It's why funding needs to continue to be a priority. I remember telling Jack that he had cancer, and he asked me where, and I told him it was in his side, and he said, I knew that. I said, what? We had taken him to our doctor a year before for what we thought was maybe appendicitis, and it wasn't. We didn't know what was to come. I told him it sucked that he had cancer. Grown-up swear word, it sucks that you have cancer. And he said, it doesn't suck. The doctors and nurses are helping me. Wise kid, I know. He accepted this far quicker than I ever could. Sorry, that's my dad. My dad came out to visit us when we were at the hospital. I was still kind of fit to be tied. Glad he was there. He chatted with the senior nurse about how much nursing had changed over the years. And I sensed she was grateful that he recognized that. That conversation stuck with me, and I started thinking about the more human side of healing. I started seeing the people working in the hospital, moving garbage or sweeping floors or bringing fresh linens rather, or food. All these people that are working really hard to help heal children. On one of my nightly walks, I approached a woman who was working in the hallway, and she was cleaning machines. And I walked up to her. I think I had my head down. I had my head down a lot. And I said, my son's sick. Thank you for doing this. This is probably hard to wipe away germs you can't see, but it's really important, and I just wanted to thank you. And then I kind of looked up, and I saw her face, and she had tears in her eyes. I was like, whoa. This meant something. This conversation meant something. So I decided to recognize, it sounds silly, but I put on social media that had a little idea that kind of went viral. I wanted to take lifesavers the candy. And I asked friends and family if they were interested, if they wanted to donate some, because I wanted to recognize these other people for being these hidden healers. And then it rained lifesavers. We delivered 50 great big bags of lifesavers to the hospital when my son got his tumor out with a card, just thanking them for their work. When I became more grateful, I became calmer, and I changed my mindset that my son was I didn't want to think of him as fighting cancer. I wanted to think that he was on a healing journey. He was sick for a really long time, and we didn't know. And that brought me a lot of comfort. We bought 500 of these wristbands, and we gave them away. You can sell them as a fundraiser, but we wanted to give them away. I can't tell you what it means when you see someone wearing a wristband with your child's name on it, Team Jack. We had a whole community of people sending good wishes to our son. And when people shaved their heads for him, in his words, he didn't feel so alone anymore. Our days were spent either quietly at the house or filled with medical appointments. I remember trying to get Jack up early one day to go downtown for radiation. He made it clear he didn't want to go. When he finally got up, I had to sit down. I was so overcome with how much his physical body had changed. My 8-year-old boy had morphed into an 80-year-old man, bald, frail, hunched over, grumpy. It wasn't for long, but it was definitely a stop moment for me. Fortunately, he got better. Radiation, when it was finished, and chemotherapy, when it moved to every 3 weeks, we started seeing him again. I remember one day I was doing laundry and I noticed grass stains on his pants, and I called out to my husband, his pants are dirty, like with real dirt. And my husband said, you need to take a picture? Because I'd been taking pictures of everything. I said, no. It was imprinted on my heart that he was well again. So 2 years after my son's cancer, we decided to move closer to my husband's work. We bought a house that needed a lot of renovations, and we were working really hard, and I began to feel unwell. And it was then that I found the lump. I just turned 41, and I knew I could book a mammogram without a doctor's referral. I didn't rush to have one when I was 40 because cancer doesn't run in my family. I called and I had the scan done within a week. Projected on the wall before me was the lump I could feel in another cluster of cells. Couldn't believe it. On September the 1st, my husband joined me, and we got the diagnosis that I had stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma. I remember turning to him with tears in my eyes, and I reached out for him, and I just apologized. And then I turned to the doctor, and I told her I could still hear her, because when I heard of my son's illness, I couldn't hear anything anymore. I learned that 1 in 8 women would get breast cancer in their lifetime, and that 1 in 31 women would die from it. I learned that what I had was most common. 80% of women got what I had. It was well-funded and well-researched, and my prognosis was good. I called family and friends. Over the phone lines, I could hear it once again, pause of disbelief, and then a wave of support. Then I put on social media. I knew I couldn't hide. By telling people in such a public way, I was connected with other women who had breast cancer. One woman in particular who told me of her story, how cancer had touched all the women in her family, herself, her mother, her sisters, and that she had a surgeon who took aggressive surgical approach, and then they didn't need chemotherapy, and that appealed to me deeply. The cancer agency set me up with a surgeon who reviewed procedures, typical surgeries for cancer like mine, lumpectomy, where they take off just the tumor and margins around it, or one side, single mastectomy. Both required chemotherapy after. I opted for a second opinion, and I sought out the surgeon that my friend had recommended. She was all business. I finally had to tell her why I was so sad, that my son had cancer just 2 years before. I decided to have a double mastectomy in October, and I was a candidate for reconstruction. I had 1 surgery, 1 procedure. I met my oncologist in November. He was surprised by my choice to go so aggressive with surgery. He said chemo. I said no. I'm a fun patient, I know. I told him I did my homework. and that tumors of a certain size didn't need chemo. He sent away a tissue sample, and it came back a month later, wasn't aggressive. I was clear from my cancer in December, and I returned to work in January. By then, I had strength and range of motion back, and I felt more like my own self again. That's my journey through cancer, not a long one. I think it's one worth sharing. This is a recent tweet from the Canadian Cancer Society, and they say that 1 in 2 people will get a cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. I hope they've done the math wrong, but I don't think they have. They say that in the next 10 years, cancer rates are going to increase substantially. I have some advice. Hold on to hope, lean into love, find ways to be grateful. Let me unpack that. Hope is a little bit of medicine that you have or you don't. Doctors can't prescribe it. Lean into love. Someone in oncology told me that cancer would either rip my marriage apart or glue it back together. I'm glad to say that cancer did glue everything back together. And find ways to be grateful, even despite cancer. It's easy to be angry about cancer because we've all lost someone or we've seen someone struggle or suffer. But more people are living longer with cancer, or they have treatments that prolong their lives, or they're just living longer after cancer. When I hear people say they'll never find a cure for cancer, I sort of want to pick a fight. I want to say cancer is this great big umbrella, and under it is all these varieties of cancers. And they have found many cures for cancer, but not every cure. But I don't pick a fight. I'm too nice for that. They say that cancer changes everything. They're right. I don't sweat the small stuff like I used to. I love deeper. I try to be more in the moment. I find more joy to my job. I know that all of this can be taken because my life was interrupted twice. So what I fear most, 10 years ago, if you asked me what I feared most, it would be that I would get sick and my family would be impacted. Never once did I think that my son would get cancer. Today, if you ask me what I was afraid of, it would be that the people around me don't know how much I care for them. I'm a kindergarten teacher. It's the best job. It's not for the faint of heart. So for me, there's life after cancer. But twice I had to hang up my teaching bag and step away from a job I love. That was really hard. Over my career, small children have said to me that they love me, and I didn't know how to handle that. I'd be like, thanks. That's awkward. And then 2 years ago, I don't know if I was caught off guard or if I was just ready to receive it. It was playtime. One of my little kinders kind of rushed over to me. I love you. And I said, and I love you. And then I was surrounded by kindergartners. They just kind of all, you love her? Do you love me? Yes. And me? Yes. And me? Yes. And do you love him over there? What is he doing over there? Yes, I love him too. He's the one who needs my love the most. But by telling my students in such an open way, it's been profound. I've had 2 amazing teaching years. I look forward to many more. As a kindergarten teacher, I like to read stories that end like this. And they lived happily ever after. Our story has a sad start with my son's cancer, and has a plot twist. Who knew? But it is a great ending. I'm so proud of how our family faced cancer, not once, but twice. My son is strong now and smart, and he's a fierce defenseman in ice hockey. And me, I'm forever grateful. I'm forever changed by all of these experiences. 2 storms we never saw coming, but we weathered them well. My mom always used to say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. She was right, even when it happens twice. Take that, cancer. Thank you.